Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom. Kingdom.
How we doing, Kansas City? Welcome to Kingdom Radio. I'm your host, Richard Smith, and with me, as always, I have my senior NFL analyst and co-host, Chris Chavez. And look, Kansas City, the Chiefs take this game in the snow and make it 9 in a row against the Denver Broncos at a score of 23-3, and it was really an exciting game. From the start, Patrick Mahomes had his play action pass to Hill, a 41-yard touchdown pass, and the Chiefs never really looked back. Chris, what did you think of this game today?
I thought it was an incredible show of dominance by the Chiefs' offense and defense in this game. Like we talked about in the pregame, we needed for both sides to come into this game and play at a high level, and even in the snow, both sides did. It was fantastic to watch.
It really was a lot of fun to watch, and the elements did not slow down Patrick Mahomes one bit. It seemed like he had his foot on the pedal the whole game. He went 27 for 34 with 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, which was on the 1-yard line. And, he really could have had 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 touchdowns if the Chiefs wouldn't have stalled out on a few drives in this game. But I want to touch base on something. The hometown kid Drew Lock comes into Arrowhead, and we had touched base on this before, in the pregame show, Chris, and we had stated that we really thought that the platform was too big for Drew Lock, and he wouldn't really have the output that he had in the previous 2 games. And so, Chris, what did you think of our prediction and how it turned out?
I think our prediction was spot on, but he definitely didn't have a lot of help from his supporting cast. Sutton dropped a lot of balls.
Yes.
He was off target a lot as well, but when he did get the ball where it needed to be, his receivers were dropping the ball in the weather.
Yes, and look, the Chiefs were getting pressure on him all game long, and that's exactly what we wanted and what we needed. It was a lot of fun to watch. The Chiefs score that touchdown really out of the gate and go up 6-0 because Butker missed the extra point. And then the Chiefs add on a field goal. And even at sitting at 9-0, it felt like the Chiefs had the dominance in this game. The defense, just continually shut down Denver over and over and over and over and over again. At the end of the first quarter or whatever, we're sitting at 9-0. Chris, how did you feel about that moving forward?
I felt fantastic. I also felt like we should be up by more, but given the weather and having to kind of play with a slower tempo, I understood only having 9 points on the board, but we should have had the field goal. It should have been a touchdown. We just need to work on our red zone play calling, because with as many times as we've stalled out in the red zone this year, it's been rather frustrating. But game-wise, man, it felt fantastic at that moment in time. We definitely had that game in hand at that point.
And it really seemed to feel that way. Denver just couldn't get anything rolling. Our defense just continued to get pressure and get pressure and get pressure. Force Lock into bad situations, extend plays. It was uncomfortable for Drew Lock all game long. We took advantage of the weakened offensive line due to injury. That was nice to watch. It was, all around defensively a great game. Travis Kelce, 11 receptions, 142 yards. How about that?
Yeah, that was definitely the key component on offense for us. he and Mahomes on offense had absolutely monster games. There's only one other guy that I want to throw in there as far as having a monster game, but it's from the defensive side. But Honey Badger had himself a game today.
I would have to agree with you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce Travis Kelce as, one of the best tight ends ever. But what record did Travis Kelce break today? I'll let you take that away.
So with Kelce's very first catch today in today's game, I believe it was for 14 yards. He broke the 1,000-yard mark for the season. And he set a NFL record for most years with 1,000 yards at the mark of 4. But not only did he break that mark for the number of career years with 1,000 yards
in a row,
he also did it consecutively.
Yes.
No other tight end in history has ever done that. The closest, the only other guy who has, was Greg Olsen, who did it between 2014 and 2016.
Yes, right. And so let's talk about this for a second, because Travis Kelce has been a staple at the tight end position, and has been largely what's the right word I'm looking for? He's the best tight end in the game, and so he's been really fortunate, along his career to have two great quarterbacks throwing the ball to him, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. How fortunate is Kelce, during his career to come in when he did and have the quarterbacks that he has, and then also the future that he's still looking at, because I don't look for Kelce to slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, Kelce has been very fortunate to play with two quarterbacks who understand that they need to utilize the tight end in any offense. And Kelce's abilities to be able to get open, to take his basketball background, his knowledge as a quarterback, has been very helpful for him. The way that he studies. When he came into the league, he studied Tony Gonzalez. He studied Antonio Gates, both of whom are former basketball players who transitioned to the position of tight end, and rather successfully. He studied Rob Gronkowski, and he's looking at what the greats do, and he emulates that. And it's absolutely worked out for him. He has become, like you said, the best tight end in the league right now, and I would venture to say probably for the next several years while he finishes out the rest of his career. There's definitely some good ones out there, but I don't think that they're going to be touching this record anytime soon.
Oh no, he's really, made a presence in the NFL, and like you said, it's going to last here for a while. And he's got a quarterback that can get him the ball better than any quarterback in the history of the league. So these numbers are just going to continue to climb. He's going to have monster numbers week in and week out for, I'd probably say, the next 4 years or so. So congratulations, Travis Kelce. That's a huge deal. And that shows you the type of talent that we have here in Chiefs Kingdom. So let's talk about the Mahomes to Hill connection here, because, again, Mahomes throws 2 touchdown passes to Tyreek Hill, who really had more of I'd say, a quiet day. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, but what did you think of this, Mahomes to Hill connection here against the Denver Broncos? It really was, the nail in the coffin to the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely. The first touchdown definitely set the tone for the Broncos and the Chiefs, really, in this game. Tyreek ended up getting double covered on the play, and he cut inside, and the safety jumped out ahead of him. And so he knew that with the safety covering the middle, he can cut outside, and he'll have all the space to the sideline to catch the ball. And as soon as he made that break, Mahomes threw it right where it needed to be, and he brought it in for a very easy touchdown.
It's a beautiful thing, this Mahomes to Hill combination, and it seems like all the great quarterbacks, that leave their mark all time, they have that receiver, and so this is a combination that probably will not leave Kansas City for a long time. But his blazing fast speed, he's such a great route runner, and again, he shows the league that you can't touch him. You get him downfield, you get him behind the defender, it's over with, and Mahomes has a big enough arm to put it right on the money every single time, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. So let's look at the defensive side of the ball, and we'll talk about Chiefs defense, who's had 9 takeaways in the last 3 games. Thornhill had himself an interception. Kind of run us through that scenario, Chris.
Now, on the play before, Honey Badger had himself an interception, but
yes,
they found an awful holding call on Charvarius Ward.
Right.
The play got negated. But on the very next play, Locke ends up throwing a moonshot, trying to hit Noah Fant in the end zone. There was nothing wrong with the throw itself. Noah Fant ended up not being able to see the ball and thought the ball was going further. He overran the ball.
Right.
He should have been coming back to the ball and high pointed that ball. So I don't put that interception on Locke. I actually put it on Fant. But Thornhill ends up being in the right position. He's underneath the throw, and he just goes up, grabs the ball, comes down with it for the interception. It was a fantastic defensive play, being in the right position and holding on to the ball.
And there are plenty of great plays by the Chiefs defense. And it was nice to see Thornhill get an interception, especially, and it was I would say rather pivotal point. And also, look, you said the Honey Badger had a great game, which he did. He had himself a sack. He also had himself an interception that was taken away. And Alex Okafor had himself a sack, but also left the game with what do you say, a chest injury?
Yeah, chest injury. They haven't disclosed what it is just yet.
Gotcha. And that's another thing we hate to see. We don't want to see any other injuries, to the Chiefs. It's just been a crazy season. So it seemed to be, and this also seems to be kind of routine here for the Chiefs to sputter out here in the second half. And the point totals are pretty awkward. If you look at everything by standard, it shows the box score. The Chiefs scored 6 in the first, 9 in the second, 8 in the third, and 0 in the fourth quarter. But when it came down to locking this game in, and we put it in the hands of our rushing game, we really put it on the shoulders of Spencer Ware and Darwin Thompson. What did you think? Because we're looking at Spencer Ware with 7 carries for 26 yards, and Darwin Thompson with 8 carries for 38 yards. And a dismal game again for LaShawn McCoy with 6 carries for 16 yards. But as we had discussed before, we have, obviously we have no running game. And we also discussed the spark that Darwin Thompson, gave the Chiefs. And you could feel it again today, could you not?
Absolutely. I definitely like the energy that he brings. And every time that he runs, he's falling forward every time.
Yes.
He got called for a rather pivotal penalty early on in the game, or in the first half, excuse me. Kelce had, I believe it was like a 40-yard catch that got called back due to a what do they call it? A block in the back penalty on him, or maybe it was a crack back block. I'm not sure exactly which one it was. I like what the thought process there is. I'm going to hit this guy because he's going after the ball carrier, and I wanted to defend him. Totally get that. but he made a rookie mistake in making that block simply because they're so far behind the play. There's no way that player is going to catch up to Kelce.
No, on a huge play too.
Yeah, and you know what? It's something that he's going to have to experience, because then he'll know next time, okay, I'm just going to let this go, and I'm going to run with him. And if he ends up getting closer to Kelce or whomever the ball carrier is, I'm just going to jump in front of him and then block him or slow down, just get in his way.
You know, to be honest with you, it's one of those things that I feel like that he wants it bad enough to where he was down the field trying to make a play. And I'll tell you what, that's a lot more effort that I've seen out of our running backs thus far this season.
Yeah, I will definitely agree with you there. I haven't seen that sort of effort from any of the other running backs that we've had. I definitely like what Spencer Ware brought as well into the pass game. His blocking on the passing downs was fantastic. He was laying guys out, and that's definitely what we needed in the pass game. Darwin Thompson came in, even on passing plays, he's running out and he's looking for the pass. He didn't always get him every time, but Mahomes could have checked down to him and could have gotten some additional yards as well. I really liked what Ware and Thompson were bringing in this game. It was fantastic to see.
And it just seems to be that Kansas City down the stretch, we're finding our 1-2 punch. And it also goes to show that, look, I want to say that LaShawn McCoy is washed up. But I also want to say in his favor that the Chiefs ultimately have an offense that's built around a power rusher, and that's not LaShawn McCoy. And when you see power rushers like Spencer Ware, and even Darwin Thompson with his small frame is still a power runner, and you see the production that they're having with limited carries, because if you look at the carries, LaShawn McCoy had 6, Spencer Ware had 7, Darwin Thompson had 8. And that's rush by committee all over it. But if you take those 3 rushes away from LaShawn McCoy and give them to Spencer Ware or Darwin Thompson, we could quite possibly have, a game where we have over 100 yards rushing.
Yeah, and honestly, we were not that far away at all combined. We were sitting at 92 yards for the game.
Right, but that's also with an 11-yard carry by Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
So.
But I definitely think, like you were saying, you give those carries to Ware, to Thompson, and I think that we definitely break the 100-yard mark in the game.
Those guys aren't scared to put their shoulder down, and that's something LaShawn McCoy dances around, finds his holes, and our offensive line isn't built like that. You have to get through. You've got to power through the offensive line and get to the second level, and that's something Shady McCoy does not bring to the table. He's had a brilliant career. He's just not right for the system. He's a little bit old, and we need production back there because we're leaving points on the field, and that's what drives me crazy. And me and you touch base on this a lot because it's happening week in, week out. We get into the red zone, and we can't punch the ball in. The reason why we can't punch the ball in is because we're one-dimensional. We have no rushing attack. There's no team in the league that's scared to line up against LaShawn McCoy and the Kansas City Chiefs. You put Darwin Thompson or Spencer Ware in there, somebody who is a power back who will run through you and run through the second level, then you instill some fear, and you can make your red zone 2 to 3 dimensional.
Yeah, what I will also say, and this is probably going to be the one of few times where I actually defend McCoy on this point, is it's his first year with this offensive line, and typically to be successful, you kind of have to have some understanding of how your offensive line is going to block for you, where to expect the holes to be, and they also have to understand as the running back, where do you want us to open up the holes? What do you want us to do? And that was one of the key points of bringing back Spencer Ware. Is Spencer Ware has that understanding of the offensive line, has that familiarity, which has allowed him to come in and I don't say necessarily thrive, but to be successful stepping in right away. McCoy, he's had a year now, but you would kind of expect to see him get a little bit more familiar back there. But with as little as we run the ball, it might be a little hard for that to necessarily translate onto the field.
I'm not buying into that because LaShawn McCoy has spent how many years in the league? He's a veteran running back. You put a veteran running back and a high-powered look at Kareem Hunt. I mean, come on now. Like I can't buy into that. But I understand your perspective, but it's just one of those things that. Okay, so last year with Buffalo, LaShawn McCoy didn't do anything. Look at Buffalo this year. Look at the progression of LaShawn McCoy over the last 3 years, and it's he's going downhill, but see, you're also giving the man credit. Think about this: Darwin Thompson doesn't know this offensive line any better than LaShawn McCoy, but you see him having production when he's put in. So that's my thing. Is I just don't. I'm not going to go down that road because LaShawn McCoy isn't bringing to the table what anybody thought he would. I mean, he has not even bringing 50 yards to the game. I can't. It's weak execution.
I'll agree with you there, but I mean throughout. I wouldn't necessarily say history, but within the last couple of years, you've had examples of running backs who have gone to new teams and have struggled that first year and then turned around and been successful. We haven't necessarily hit that successful mark here, but look at Le'Veon Bell with the Jets.
But he's
having an awful year this year.
But they don't have an offensive line, and I'm not saying that we do, but it's just one of the we're a winning team without a running game, and everybody knows it. LaShawn McCoy is averaging 20 yards a game. There's nothing. I mean, you're telling me a rookie who can average twice as much, almost 3 times as much as LaShawn McCoy, who's never seen this offensive line either. I mean, you put a stud with studs, you expect him to perform like a stud. I don't know what's going on with LaShawn McCoy, but I just can't give him that 1-year deal because when you bring a player like LaShawn McCoy in, you bring him in we signed him for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, what did we don't sign somebody for a year to bring him in to get him ready for next year, you know?
Okay, so I've got a fun little comparison for you. So this season, LaShawn McCoy is averaging 4.7 yards per carry. For his career, he's averaging 4.5 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually performing better behind this offensive line currently than he has his entire career with Buffalo and Philly.
Hands down, we don't have a running game. I'm not willing to listen to any of that, Chris. I'm not going to sit here and listen to the man has 5 yards a carry when he's not even getting 50 yards a game. None of that is relevant. We have no run. Nobody's scared of LaShawn McCoy. Nobody. There's not one team in the league who cares about LaShawn McCoy. It's bad. It's horrible in Kansas City. That's all there is to it. There's no justifying how bad our running game is.
I'll agree with you there.
So, with that being said, we already know that LaShawn McCoy is not the answer, so there's no point in putting up an argument for a player who's not going to be here past this year, who obviously has proven that he's not the guy for Kansas City. And when Spencer Ware and Darwin Thompson, Spencer Ware just got back on the team and is producing more than LaShawn McCoy, I'm not willing to listen to that. And it's no offense, and please, but it's just I don't want. I guess I can't sit and actively listen to anybody defending LaShawn McCoy this season because his game's been in the bottom of the trash.
No, and I agree with you there. But looking at the rushing totals throughout the entire, or over the course of the entire season, and you you have to take into consideration that we haven't been a running team. We've been throwing, especially earlier on in the season, we were throwing the ball a lot more than we were attempting to run the ball. And over the course of the season, we've spread the ball even more across the running back by committee. And so McCoy gets minimum touches, Ware gets minimum touches, Thompson gets minimum touches, Williams gets minimum touches. But as a whole, well, the running back by committee is producing. I mean, you look at this game, 92 yards. Now, absolutely, in this three-headed monster, McCoy definitely has the lesser of the put-out. I agree with that. But I also think that he is adding something to our backfield, even if it is just a matter of tutoring Darwin Thompson and helping him to understand how to read the holes, read the offensive line, and how to do the little things, how to take care of himself, whatever that may be. I think that the 1 year rental of McCoy is going to pay off for the next 5 to 6 years when Darwin ends up becoming the running back in Kansas City.
Which is great. So put LaShawn McCoy on the sideline and let him hold a clipboard. Don't start him in every single game and then pull him out after a quarter and a half and let him rush for 16 yards and let Spencer Ware and Darwin Thompson make you look like a fool. I mean, I'm just being real. And here's my thing, is you haven't defended him like this the whole season. Last week you weren't saying this. Last week there was no defending LaShawn McCoy. And we were all saying LaShawn McCoy's washed up. Yes, he might.
And honestly, I'm still saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to be very highly critical of him. But when you look at the numbers, his yards per carry average. Now, granted, like the average has certainly dropped the second half of the season.
Right.
But for him to average more this season in a yard per carry than he has his entire career, that's impressive.
Do you think that he hasn't been given a chance to get into a rhythm?
Because of the running back committee, I think so.
But do you think that? Okay, so but the first couple games.
That doesn't mean that I would give him the bulk of the carries and make him the lead back.
Right, which he did have at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And so, although we called it a running back by committee, the first half of the season, and up until I believe it was the Tennessee game where he got sat, it was the shady show.
And that's kind of and that's where I'm at with the whole shady thing is, okay, he's given his opportunity, but he really has even had 100-yard rushing. He had one 100-yard rushing game, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And that was because he had a 91-yard rush, or was that even him?
Oh no, that was Williams.
Yeah, that was Williams. So Shady McCoy has not had a 100-yard game all season. I would say at this point he is either at 500 yards or just below 500 yards total on the season. I'm liking the fresh legs in Darwin and Spencer Ware, and it was great seeing them close this game out. They did a great job, didn't they?
Absolutely, they did.
So look, we have won 4 games in a row now here in Kansas City after we went on a pretty tough stretch. But we knew that was going to be a tough stretch with Mahomes being out, Matt Moore coming in, who really did a phenomenal job for the Chiefs. But I think, I don't know what's more impressive in this game because there's a lot of great things to take away. The offense and the defense did great. I'm really happy with this rushing attack. I feel like, okay, now that me and you I love the battle that me and you has had, our little debate on this running back thing here. Let me ask you this. Does it seem to be that Big Red is leaning more towards Spencer Ware and Darwin Thompson?
I think so, especially as the season has gone on and he's gaining more trust in Darwin Thompson and as well as Spencer Ware. I feel like he has definitely given them more of the carries, more of the touches. Last week in Spencer Ware's very first game back with the Chiefs, he had more snaps than any of the other backs,
which is great.
Yeah, absolutely, and it shows that Reed or whoever makes that call, whether it be Reed or Bieniemy, they have more trust in those guys than they do in Shady.
And let's also look at this aspect as well while we're on the running game. Is Spencer Ware and Darwin Thompson are also better rush blocking running backs than Shady McCoy.
Yeah, and Reed said that Shady needed to learn the blocking scheme and all the little things that they've changed in his offense and since they were in Philly and blah, blah, blah. That was the same excuse that he gave for Darwin Thompson and why he was keeping him out the first half of the season. Meanwhile, Shady ends up starting and getting the bulk of the carries in the very first game against Jacksonville. But over the course of the season, in the carries and the time on the field has changed between Thompson and McCoy, and Thompson's getting more and more looks every single week, which is fantastic because it keeps Shady as close to 100% as possible going into the regular or into the postseason. It gives Darwin Thompson critical experience in a lot of different situations where he's not going to be learning the exact same things off the field watching as he does on the field doing. Yeah. And then you also throw in Spencer Ware, who's already familiar with our offense and what we're doing. And everybody's going to be going into the postseason as close to 100% as they possibly could be, which is very different from where we've been in years past.
Yes. And so, look, our team is looking good. This is the best that our defense has looked and our running game has looked all season long. And I think that's something to really be happy about. And also, Mahomes really looked to be back on key today too, did he not?
You know what? That brings up a really great point. For him to throw for 340 yards,
yes.
Essentially, I'm going to kind of round up here. You're throwing for, I believe it's like 80% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, 115.7 rating as a quarterback passer, or in the snow.
5 inches, mind you.
That was incredible for him to put up these sort of numbers in the snow.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes, and against a division rival, and the weather, but that tells you right there, you don't sleep on Kansas City because it doesn't matter, wind, rain, or shine, snow, whatever. The Chiefs come to play, and Mahomes, hey, give me 5 inches of snow and I'll give you 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. We'll take that all day long, kid. Keep that coming. Keep that coming. And that's also with 2 to 3 drives that stalled. I mean, you know what? Butker put up, 9-point, kicked 3 field goals this game?
3 field goals.
So that's 3 touchdowns taken off the board. And this is also in the elements. But this is something that you and I talked about, though, that we need to fix, and that's kind of what got us into this rushing game talk here, is us opening up our red zone. Look, our red zone is terrible because we have no rushing game. If that opens up, that'll open up our red zone. So let's touch base a little bit around the league on this playoff picture, because we're sitting at 10-4 right now, 23-3. We hand Denver a convincing victory. We have 2 more games, but look, Houston beats Tennessee 24-21. So Houston goes to 9-5 and Tennessee goes to 8-6. New England takes care of business against Cincinnati 34-13 and go to 11-3. And later today, Pittsburgh plays Buffalo, and Pittsburgh's sitting at 8-5 and Buffalo's sitting at 9-4. And also we all saw that Baltimore took care of business against the Jets 42-21. But we're still sitting a game back from New England, and we're a game ahead of with Buffalo, I guess we're a half game up on them as it stands, but obviously they play Pittsburgh. What does it mean for Pittsburgh to beat Buffalo today?
So if Pittsburgh beats Buffalo, it really just kind of solidifies who we are probably going to be playing if we end up having the third seed.
Mm-hmm.
However, well, let me also go down this other road as well. If Pittsburgh beats Buffalo, Buffalo hasn't necessarily sealed their position in the playoffs. And so next week, they're going to go into the game against New England with an absolute vengeance, which is really what we need because the Patriots only have 2 more games left, the Bills and the Dolphins.
Right.
And if the Patriots lose to the Bills, that means that the Chiefs and Patriots will, for all intents and purposes, end up having the same record going into the playoff picture.
Right.
Because we beat the Patriots, we will then have the tiebreaker, and so we would end up solidifying the second seed.
And realistically, I personally want Buffalo to win this game because if Buffalo wins this game, they will still be in a position to beat. If they beat Pittsburgh this week and then they beat New England next week and then they win out the last game, then they win the tiebreaker against New England and possibly bounce New England out of the playoffs completely.
I would love for that to happen, but what is concerning for me there, and I'm not sure how this would necessarily work because we don't necessarily have a game against them, but Buffalo and the Chiefs would then theoretically have the exact same record. And so my concern would be who would end up having the second seed.
It would be Kansas City because Buffalo lost to Baltimore.
Oh, okay. So then we go, okay, I got you.
So the tiebreaker either way in that division will go to Kansas City.
Okay.
So you see what I'm saying? So no matter if it's New England or it's Buffalo, tiebreaker goes to Kansas City, which is a great thing. And then Pittsburgh goes on to play Baltimore as well. But I don't see Baltimore falling out of that one spot. I'm more concerned about the 2 spot and a first-round bye for Kansas City. And would you kind of agree with that scenario?
Yeah, I absolutely would.
So, and it's very much a possibility the Chiefs just have to take care of business. So, with this game, summarize this game in one word, Chris.
Dominant?
That's exactly what I was going to say as well. All the way around. We held. Let's look at these Broncos stats. We held Drew Lock to 18 of 40 for 208 yards and 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. Phillip Lindsay had 7 carries and for 32 yards. And I'll say this might be the only game of the season where we outrushed the other team. So I will have to say that this was an all-around dominant game. I really would have loved to see a goose egg on the board, but certainly gives me confidence for these last 2 games coming up. Chris, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we end the show here?
Just one final thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cortland Sutton had all week long been talking trash about how they were going to come in and destroy Kansas City and own us and blah, blah, blah. Cortland Sutton, you dropped 6 passes and you only had 80 yards on the day, and your team took a huge L. Shut up, bro.
I love it. Sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut and let your production do the talking. And obviously that's not the case for Denver today. I have one more thing I want to throw in there before we conclude the post-game show. Terrell Suggs did get claimed by the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, I'm sure he didn't play today. And it's probably not going to help going down the stretch because if Tennessee loses another game, it's pretty much over with for them. But look, Kansas City, one word, dominance. 2 games left in the season. We really need some help. I'm looking forward to this Pittsburgh-Buffalo game. We'll see what happens. Maybe we can sneak into this 2 spot. Kansas City, you have a great evening. I hope you enjoyed that game today. 5 inches of snow did not stop Kansas City from putting it on the Denver Broncos 9 times in a row. You have a great night, Kansas City.
Thank you for tuning in to Kingdom Radio, your go-to podcast for everything Kansas City Chiefs.